Hey guys, I'm going to be doing a short video today about some basics in KoA. The first thing I want to talk about is the different types of troops in your army, their position on the battlefield, and their particular role in your army. The first one I want to talk about is going to be the troops that you have in your barracks. You're going to have two types of troops in here. You're going to have spearmen and you're going to have melee. If you notice when you click on the type of troop, it says spearmen have increased defense, so that's your spearmen. These, you can see where they say warriors have increased defense, etc. And those are your warriors, and they usually just alternate in between the two on most of these. So, whenever you engage in battle, the first ones to die are always going to be your warriors, and then the next ones are going to be your spearmen, with some exceptions. But in general, you're going to want about 10% of your troops to be warriors, because these guys are, their role in the battle is defensive, as well as your spearmen, because they're next in line to die as well. They don't do a lot of damage. Mostly they're just going to take the hits for you, so your damage troops can sit back and do the work. If you notice here, you can click this information button on the troop information, and it's going to show you their health, defense, attack, etc. And if you notice here, your infantry type troops have a lot of health and they have a lot of defense. But you're only going to want about 10-15% if you're attacking lower tier, and you might bump that up to 20% or 30% if you're dealing with people with a similar tier troop that you have. The next people in line in the battle are going to be your cavalry troops, and you can see that they're going to alternate as well. You have light cavalry and you have heavy cavalry. The light cavalry is going to be closer to the battle, and the heavy cavalry is going to be behind them. So you'll notice that these guys are going to die first, and then the heavy cavalry is going to die next. But they're only going to get to your cavalry if all your warriors are dead. And the only exception to that rule is the mounted skirmishers. From the battle reports that I've read, for some reason, these guys seem to be the closest. If nobody else dies, these guys are going to die. The next in line to die, if all your cavalry is decimated, as well as your infantry, is going to be your range guys. Now, your range guys and your cavalry guys are both going to be your damage dealers, with the marksmen and the bowmen doing the most damage. You notice here you have archers and you have crossbowmen, and these alternate. Sometimes they do skip a tier though. So you have crossbowmen here, right next to each other. So when, say, like if you have tier 6, you don't want to train tier 5 and tier 6. You want to train tier 6. And then you might want to train your tier 4. So now in the battle, the same thing is going to apply with the cavalry. So you can tell these guys are a little bit lighter. So your archers are going to die first, and your crossbowmen actually stand behind your archers. So if all your cavalry is gone and all your infantry is gone, the next person that's going to die is your archers, and then lastly is going to be your crossbowmen. So these guys are going to survive when no one else does. Now, as you can see, in addition to where they stand on the battlefield and the importance in that, there's also different types of effectiveness that they have, such as these guys are effective against spearmen, these guys are effective against cavalry and siege troops. You want to keep that in mind, because you don't want to set all your army to just be, I want just all bowmen or all crossbowmen. You want a mixture of both. You want to do a lot of damage though, you're going to put about 60 to 70% of your guys into being bowmen, and then let the other guys take the hits. But that can change depending on your particular bonuses, as we'll talk about here in a minute. The other type of troop we have is siege damage. Now, they're a little bit different. It's not necessarily a damage or defensive type of thing, clear cut and dry like the other troops are. If you read the description here on the trebuchets, they have increased attack against traps. So these are the ones you take into battle to destroy those enemy traps, to keep the enemy traps from killing you. So, defense through offense. And then if you look here at the tier 5, you notice I got quite a few of these as well. These are to protect your troops by absorbing the brunt of the opposition trap attack. So they're going to protect your troops, like your infantry troops, from getting hit by a lot of those traps and provide a lot of protection. So I like carrying some of these with me to protect some of my troops. Now let's talk about some of the bonuses and how that can affect your troops. The first one I want to talk about is going to be prestige. And if you look here, all of your buildings that are north of the river that you can upgrade, like your barracks and your tower and things like that, they all have this prestige level here. And if you look at it, the buildings, your troop buildings, all are specific to that particular type of troop. And then the other ones have different types of bonuses, whether it be defense or health, etc. And I've been asked, should I focus on one? Should I spread them across? It's really up to you, but I prefer to go to each one and level them up. So most of mine are all either somewhere between 14 and 16, because the higher you upgrade them, as with most things, the resources you're using, the prestige banners, it becomes more and more expensive. So you're going to get the best bang for your buck by immediately getting all the bonuses across the board and just working your way up. Because you can see here, we click on the range, we get the bowman health, attack, defense. Whereas if you go over here to your stronghold, you actually see troop health, attack, defense. So it's for all your troops. So that's something else you want to keep in mind as well. So if you do choose to focus in one area in particular, you could end up having some really high bonuses for, say, archers, and you haven't leveled up your cavalry quite as much. Or you just have a balanced approach like I do. Another bonus that you want to keep in mind when you're organizing your troops and you want to try to determine what is the best damage you're going to deal is your heroes. So if we go in here and let's take a look at the Master of Arms. You want to look at all the heroes you're using because they all have different types of bonuses they're going to start out with. So you see here that the cavalry attack is plus 14% for Sir Agravain. And if I click on Sir Lamorak, his bowman attack is, well, he's not leveled up, but his first in line is the bowman attack. Now you can see here, once you get to more stars and your prowess increases by collecting the fragments, it's going to switch to his next one will be cavalry, where Sir Agravain's next will be bowman attack. So probably the best one that you have the soonest is the one that you're going to be leveling up, but you definitely want to pay attention to what those bonuses are. And the reason why I say that is I have a healthy balance between cavalry to deal damage and bowmen to deal damage, and part of that reason is with that bonus that I get from that hero, they actually do just as much damage or more damage than my archers do. So that's important to keep in mind. Another way that you can take a look and see what the contributing factors are is going to be your Lord tree. I've got 81 points in war. So if you look here, there's going to be different bonuses that you get. For example, in certain things you're going to come before others. You see here that the bowman attack and the cavalry attack right here. And then as you come over, I'm pretty heavy into the attack and I skip out on the defense a lot. But once I get over here, the cavalry attack is 10 points here. But I don't have any, but it's going to take me a little bit longer to get over here to level up the bowman attack. So for right now, I've got this bonus here for cavalry attack. And I don't have it for bowmen. So that means that's one other way that my cavalry is going to be hitting a little bit harder than the bowmen. Now there's also some other things that I want to just bring up while we're here. One of those is your emergency recall. If you haven't used this before, it can recall all troops not involved in a rally in 3 seconds. That's pretty important if you need to get all your troops back very quickly. And the other one here that I've got so far is your colossal attack that increases your march capacity by 10% for a period of 30 minutes. Also, while we're in the... Yep, I think that's all I want to cover in here. just some useful things that if you're not aware of. Another part that you have to consider is the different type of gear that you use. Some gear is just one in particular thing that it draws attention to, and some other ones have different benefits. If you see here, my helm has the defensive traits for all the different types of troops, and yours might be a specific type of troop, and damage received. And if you have other type of gear that does like something for collection or something like that, that's good too. But if you're going raiding, you're going to want to switch your gear over to something combat orientated. But you need to keep these different attributes in mind as well when you're looking at, what troops are going to be the most effective for you. Another thing to consider as well in regards to bonuses is going to be your dragon skills. And when you're going in here, the first thing that I would recommend is you go into your assigned skills. You pick out which ones, that you care about, and you put them in there and you work to get those added in and keep in mind what you're assigning. And your combat style can be different, and you could do something a little bit different than me, but I like to go for the march capacity so we could, send more troops out. The bowman attack here, the bowman attack here, and then this is a real nice one that you might not have yet, but it's nice that it keeps your troops from getting killed in battle. We have all these different ones here, but these are important things to keep in mind as well, and this kind of helps balance against the cavalry as well, to have all that extra bowman attack. And the one more thing that we haven't talked about yet is going to be the research is another important factor. If we go into the research tree and we go into combat, you'll see that there is a lot of different things that can come into play in regards to your march capacity, your march speed, health, attack, defense of the different troop types. I recommend doing as much of this as you can, at least so that you can get to your extra march slots if you haven't already. But it does get pretty pricey once you get over here, which is why it hasn't been completed out yet. But this is something else you want to keep in mind as well. Really want to get into the attack phases over here is really what you want to shoot for. Now we talked about balancing your troops out whenever you're raiding. The other important thing to think of though is when you're doing your PvE, when you are attacking the golem or something like that and your troops aren't at risk of dying. So in those cases you can use all bowmen to get max damage if you have enough. Otherwise, you just keep the normal mixture. And we can look at a battle report, and I want to show you, I think that should have it saved in here where you can see that different types of troops can die first besides just the melee guys. If we look here, you'll see that these mounted skirmishers, he lost some here, but he didn't lose hardly anything here. And you can also see how these spearmen are doing more damage than these maulers are, even though that the maulers are a higher level. Because if you look here, well, maybe not, I got the numbers wrong. But in some cases that is true. Probably need a better example than that. And you can see I don't have any mounted skirmishers. I didn't lose any troops. And I think some more people down here, they might have had some as well. You can see here there's a lot of losses here for mounted skirmishers and no losses in the melee area. So there are some exceptions as to what types of troops you can lose. So Now let's look at some battle reports so we can kind of um, show you what's going on here with the defensive troops. See, there's minimal loss here. Quite a few of his died. Now, this is a good way to see all your different bonuses aggregated. And as you can see here, I have a 83% increase to cavalry attack and a 51 increase to bowman attack. And then when we go to look at the kills, you can see that I have 17,671 kills with my cavalry T7s, and then the T7 bowmen have 25,000. And if you look at the numbers of, you know, how many troops survived plus losses, you'll see that, you know, it looks like the bowmen actually did a little. Well, I'm sorry, the mounted short bowmen, the cavalry actually did a little bit better on the damage than the marksmen did. But if I were to have the other hero for bowman damage instead of Sir Agravain, I don't believe that to be the case at all. So I would need to adjust my troop count to adjust for that. Now, as far as troops dying, you see that the only real losses, I'd say about 85% of my losses were all here in the maulers, the guys that are closest to the battle, with none of my spearmen dying. Now you do notice that some of this cavalry here died, a little bit of cavalry, a little bit of marksmen, etc. I would attribute that to the traps, since they probably had some ballista or something like that on the wall. That would be a good indicator of that, what's going on there. And if we look here at this next report, you'll see the same thing. The maulers are dying, very small numbers of anything else dying, but you also see that the light cavalry dies, none of the heavy cavalry dies. The bowmen die, but none of the crossbowmen die. And you'll see the rams that are up close. Oh well, none of those really died except for the siege towers that are right up against the wall as well. You would think of it like a battle, and the troops that are going to be closest to the attacker's wall are going to be the guys that get hurt the hardest. So while we're in here looking at the reports as well, I'm going to go right into some rating things. Before you go rating, make sure that you reinforce always. And the reason why you want to do this, for example, is I reinforced Vazzy here. And you could see that they lost quite a bit. That's how I have his report, as I reinforced them. They lost quite a bit of troops here. All his troops were out, except for, well, yeah. All those troops were out. So you can see here that, you know, all these kills mostly were just all my troops killing them. So that way, if you're out attacking and somebody attacks you, or if you can pull your troops back and have your troops and your reinforcement troops, it gives you a much better advantage due to the fact that you're reinforced. Another thing that I want to talk about as well, before you go raiding, is you want to make sure that you're boosting appropriately. So if we go out here to the kingdom map, it's pretty easy to see what all the different boosts are. If you can't remember what they are, just come out here to your city, go to city buffs. You want to be running an anti-scout. You're going to be wanting to have an attack, a defense, and a march capacity. And you see here, if you have them available to you, you just hit the use button, or you can buy them, whatever the case may be. But if you can afford to, you want to be running all 4 of these here. That way you can march more, attack, defense, and the anti-scout is so while you're attacking, they can't scout your city. And so while I'm here, I also want to talk about your peace shield. So don't go out to battle with a peace shield. Don't go out of battle with a peace shield on and then drop it when you start to attack, because just in case your reinforcements and whatever you have aren't going to be enough, and somebody's going to drop on you with a much higher stronghold and you know everything is going to get wiped out. You want to be able to shield immediately. So once you take your shield off, you have 30 minutes that putting a shield back on is going to be on cooldown. So if you take your shield down to attack somebody, cooldown for 30 minutes, can't put it back up. Also, if you're about to be under attack and you don't have a shield for some reason, which you should, or excuse me, for whatever reason, you know, whatever the case may be, you want to teleport out, right? If you're being marched on, a random teleport is not going to get you out of dodge. You're going to need to have an advanced teleport to get out. But I recommend if you're going raiding, at least have a 2-hour shield ready to go, just in case all else fails and you need to pop a shield before somebody hits you and rolls everything you have. Alright, I think that I covered most everything that I wanted to here, and guys have any questions, let me know.